Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Thank you again for joining me today on Changing the Channel. I am joined by Malene Fuglsig. She is here to shine a light on your light. She's a heart channeler, a holder of earth codes, a galactic shaman, and she speaks light language. She woke up in 2021 and is ever curious about the expansion of Gaia and the highest version of you. So welcome to the show, Malene.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So, yeah, you're very welcome. So you've been connected to your galactic roots. I'm not sure if since 2021 or possibly from before that. So just kind of walk us through that process of getting connected back to, the galactic aspect of yourself.
Yeah, that I'm consciously connected to them since 2021, but I am sure that I have been connected for much longer. But yeah, it's so they came in during, like, I started a really curious phase. So I had a time in my life where I said, okay, so now I can't keep being a skeptic. I can't keep ignoring everything. So I said to my husband, I was like, now I'm going to be more curious. And so over the course of a year, I became more and more curious. I started doing more meditations, and I didn't really have that awakening moment that you hear about when you listen to podcasts like this. And so you're walking around, you're like, oh, will anything ever happen to me? Or am I just going to never be connected? But I did see glimpses, and obviously it was divinely orchestrated for me to also be able to catch on and to even be in that moment once a deeper remembering happened for me. And for me, it happened during, I was journaling, so it came out in writing first. So I was sitting after a meditation, so I journaled, and then all of a sudden my hand just started moving in ways that I'd never seen before, and just kept going, and I was like, what is this? What is this? And so I freaked right out. I had to run out, and I even said to my husband, I was like, look at this, I am now writing gibberish. And he's like, yeah, excellent. And then I was like, and I'm not even done. So then I had to rush back in, and I had a full page more coming in. And the only understanding that, somehow I understood that these would be activation codes. But even the word activation and codes, and I was like, codes? What are codes even? And how is this a written language? So there were all of these questions that then, I just had to Google and try and figure out.
Yeah, and that little spark kind of sent you on this pathway of trying to understand. So, it definitely, for me, it started with the meditation as well. That was the first step. And I think that's the first step in kind of any higher consciousness experience is quieting that egoic mind, being able to kind of settle in and connect with the other aspects of yourself that you're not familiar with from just your day-to-day travels, right? And then
I would say even the curiosity of listening was for me the beginning, and for many others now, because to me as well, the meditation can seem so daunting when it has to be an hour of meditation. But for me as well, even an hour in the garden and doing things, but not necessarily having the mind run wild. Mm-hmm. So other forms of quieting activities, a forest walk can be quieting. So there, to me, it can be many things, but yes, definitely the quieting of the egoic voice.
I want to take a minute from the show to share how you can support changing the channel. This show is my passion project, and if you feel called to support, the best place to start is by subscribing and sharing the podcast on whatever platform you're listening. You can also use the link in the show description to provide one-time or monthly support. Next would be to check out my website in the show notes, where you can become a VIP of the show and check out the many offerings I have to support people on their journey. Finally, you can engage with the Q&A and polls to have a direct say in the direction of the show. I'm forever thankful for your support. And now, back to the show. Right. It's slowing down. It's like, taking that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour just to slow down and really, it can be whatever it is. It could be your passion project. It could be knitting or crocheting or painting or just anything that is switching your, your parasympathetic nervous system off and allowing you to reset and to really kind of tune into the body and tune into what you are experiencing inside that body of yours. So
yeah,
definitely. So
definitely.
then you were writing down light language, and then it's kind of progressed since then. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing currently with your galactic connections.
Yeah, it then turned writing. It's written channeling. It's turned into spoken light language as well. It's turned into hand movements, and light language. For those of you that have never ever heard of it, it is sort of a galactic, sort of a universal language of love and of light. So it's a frequency language, where the English language can be or any language. I am natively Danish, so any language that we speak, we have these agreements, we have social norms of what do these words mean when we say them to each other, what are the coding behind it. There can be deep social meanings in it, or some context of some words that are really hurtful, or so there's a lot of things that is written into the language that we speak, whereas light language forces you to bypass the listening of the mind and actually just speak straight to your heart. So that's why it's so powerful to speak that language, because it can be, as long as I connect to the highest in me and transmit a frequency to you, you will hear something that is for you. In a frequency that is for you. And I've now done some workshops with other people where I have several people that I then speak light language to, and I find that my light language will change depending on the person I speak it to. So it can become very individual. Like sometimes the galactics will come in and be like, yep, okay, so this person definitely needs something, and I'll just allow it to come through me. And so that will be very individual. And sometimes it seems like it's a greater collective thing, something that needs to be shared. And sometimes I get drawings, or sometimes I get sound that I then share on social media or whatever. So that's a shared message, something for all of us.
Beautiful. Yeah. When we were doing our pre-show interview, there was some messages that were coming through you, and you're like, if you're open to this, like, I have some messages for you. We did the light language, and since then I've definitely felt a little bit more tapped in, a little bit more connected. Things have been happening to me that are certainly in line with the pathway that I need to be taking, that I'm here to be, the pathway that I'm here to experience. And it is kind of fascinating how just, one or two little sessions with some light language, especially if you are drawn towards that, if this is resonating with you, I mean, certainly seeking out somebody that is capable of giving you these light languages, it can change the way that you have your perspective on reality. It can change how you are experiencing reality. It can change the amount of love that you're able to bring into your heart, and the amount of peace that you're able to experience. And that's just been my experience with a couple different iterations of light language. There's some people on YouTube that are doing it. There's some people that have their own websites that do it.
Yeah.
And it has been a very, kind of, it shifts you a little bit. And depending on your conscious awareness, it can shift you a lot if you're aware of everything that's going on. And then, the difference between Monday and Thursday of that week, you
Yeah.
can really start to experience what that shift is. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
is.
no, light language is incredibly powerful and takes you right to because it works in frequency, it can work straight in quantum, which which is so powerful because it can bypass so many things, and especially the human mind, which is often what holds us back, right? But it's yeah, I've been really in the past couple of months. I've been able to, because that's always the journey, right? We're able to heal something within ourselves that then opens us up for more healing in others. And so I've been able to really tap into this connection where I connect directly to a person and I'm then able to see in their field and see where their blocks are. So where a human is, so where maybe some traumas or something from, it can be from this life, a past life, an ancestral life, something that is coded into your DNA. But I can actually now sense it in your field, and I can then speak light language directly to it to transmute it, to then have it, like it, the transformations are astounding, even me. And I love the name of your podcast because it truly is just like I am the channel, because we're all capable of tapping into this energy. And sometimes you just need a tiny nudge to change the channel or to listen to another frequency, to hear something new within yourself. Or sometimes you just need this another person to say that thing to you. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I've heard this so many times, but then you hear it again and then I call it soul hearing. Like then you hear it in your soul and it just, yes, that's what I needed.
Yeah, soul hearing. I've definitely experienced that. Listening, watching a video and hearing this idea, how to manifest, how to change your reality, how to tune into a different reality, and you hear
Yeah.
it 2, 3, 5 times, and then one time you listen to it, and it's like, oh, wait a second, like I'm doing that. I'm recognizing that this is actually exactly what I've been doing on a subconscious or unconscious level, and then now it's operating in the consciousness. Now you're like, okay, wow, that makes so much sense. This is what I've been doing. This is how I've been showing up. And then all of a sudden you're now, fully aware of what that is, what that meaning is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that term, soul healing.
Yeah.
So do you understand, do you know where these light languages are coming from? Is it coming from a collective? Is it coming from different beings each time? Like, do you get a sense of where this is all coming from?
Yeah, I am currently, so I have well, it seems like we're all upgrading all the time. I've tapped into, at first they presented themselves as the Galactic Collective, but was actually unwilling to give themselves a name. They were like, it doesn't matter, you choose, because it's not important. And from there, I definitely sensed quite a few different star races, if you will. So there has been, I have connected to Pleiades, to Andromedans, to Lyrans, to some Arcturians. So there are different beings coming in with different information for me when I needed that. My feeling is that they're all me. So they're all my lifetimes. They're all something that I have connected with before. So it's all really a remembering. And lately I've connected with energies that call themselves the High Council of Five, which is an even, like a bigger energy is all I can say. Like it definitely feels like there's been a shift within my system to be able to hold the frequencies of these five beings.
Yeah. From what I've been able to kind of ascertain in my journey is that, there's different levels. There's different levels of beings. So kind of Ken Wilber talks about this, how we're all both parts of a thing and also whole. We're also a whole thing. So like humans are a group of different organs and smaller entities that make up this one thing called the whole human.
Yeah.
But at the fundamental level, we're made up of all these different parts that combine into this whole thing. And as we continue up that process, so on the physical level, we're kind of getting to the maximum size of the physical level. You've got planets, then you've got stars, then you've got galaxies, and that's like the ascension on the physical level. And then in the spiritual level, you have these different levels of spiritual beings. And again, they kind of they start out as parts, and then they work themselves back into a whole being. And that's why you probably feel like it's a larger being, because it's a collection of different smaller collectives that have kind of amassed their intelligence and their consciousness into this one being. And that's the whole ebb and flow of oneness to separation back to oneness again. It's always this up and down motion of, we are everything. We're the totality of the consciousness of the universe, and we're also these smaller beings, these humans that we call, or we're also the collection of cells that make up that human body. We're also the collection of atoms that make up the cells of that human body. We're also a collection of the quantum aspect of, these wavelengths that are flowing through us, that are connecting us to both the past, present, and future versions of ourselves. So it all just kind of builds on itself, both from the quantum, from the physical, from the mental, and from the spiritual realms. And that's probably like that experience that you're feeling.
Yeah. And I think as well that I've also gotten to a point where I really accept that my human mind will not ever really be able to wrap itself around all of this. Mm-hmm. So it's like I go for the feeling of it. Like, it's probably very in the feminine energy, but I feel it, and if it feels true and loving, it feels like a light, it's expansive, I go with it. If it doesn't, I don't welcome it in. So it's but it's interesting how it's for the mind to be able to make sense of all this. It gives it words. It's kind of like with the light language. I could probably explain it in light language, but with the human words, my mind just goes, I don't get it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's from my masculine perspective coming into it's very difficult to just trust the feelings, right? To just trust the, this feels like a good one. It's like, okay, what is this that is coming through me? And then trying to put icons onto all these different energies, these different ideas that are coming through, and experiencing it from the masculine side. But I have gotten a lot better at releasing the expectation of me understanding or knowing exactly what's going on, and just being able to allow exactly what needs to flow through me and really being that clear vessel, that clean vehicle for this energy, for this light, for this information to kind of be flowing through you, because that's the key. When you can get that egoic mind, when you can get all the old patterns and traumas and everything out of the way, now that energy, that light, that information can just flow through your body, and it can really be spread out into the world with as little as little of your personal perspective put on that information. And that is always the key. Like, you're always kind of cleaning the mirror, as they say in the Buddhist terms.
Yes, I agree with that, but also it's a co-creation. So that's also why you will resonate with some channelers and not with others, because you like the personal co-creation that channeler has chosen to put on that, which is also why personal messages are always better brought through by you, because you know the full story without having. So sometimes in it, like, and that's the thing, if you get to ask a question to a channeler and you're like, okay, so here's the question, how, that's still with the English words, and what was the feeling behind it, what is the deeper meaning, like what you actually need to hear, and that will always come through to you when you're channeling for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to having it. But I completely agree that it's the non-bias bringing of information, which
Right.
is hard.
And that's what I think, as a clear channel, you're able to allow whatever that being that is channeling through you to access the information from the person asking the question, right? Like that you're able to do that when you can go in and see on a quantum level where the blocks are. And that's because, you're not putting your own perspective on things. You're allowing that channel to work literally through your five sense reality to be able to tap into whatever needs to be tapped into. And
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
And each person is different. Again, each person's going to have a different experience of their ability to channel and their ability to tap into these higher energetic beings, these higher energies, this higher information that is beginning to flow into this 3D reality.
for sure. Yeah, and it is just, yeah, it just keeps expanding, and it keeps boggling my mind, all the things that are coming in now. And it boggles my mind to sit down, and if I do a channel that is just, I think, okay, so I will, for instance, on Thursday, just this Thursday before the equinox, I channeled information about codes in water. Beautiful, but a deepening in my understanding of how important water is and what it holds for all of us, and the keys that we can get from water. Really, really beautiful. And then I speak to some friends all over the globe, and they have all been getting messages about water. It seems that now is the time for these messages to come through and for all of us to understand. And that boggles my mind. Like, it boggles my mind that we all sit down, openly receive, and then we basically receive the same messages all over the world.
Yeah, yeah. It gives me a lot of hope that there not only is this message getting out to, 10 or 20 or 30 people, but I imagine, those are just the people that you're connected with. I'm sure there's
Exactly.
many, many, many other people that are getting these very similar messages and that are,
Yeah.
again, hopefully sharing these messages. That's what this podcast is kind of about. It's like, okay, I'm getting these ideas, I'm getting these messages. How do I share them with people in a easy and non frictional way, like that makes
Yeah.
it very easy for people to kind of understand, okay, here's what I'm experiencing. Take what you want from it, and leave what doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah.
So we were also talking a little bit earlier. Again, it's wonderful to have these deep connections with beings that exist outside of the five sense reality, and to be channeling all this information. But then we have to bring it back into our human, and then we have to take human steps to do what we feel is right with this information. So, how do you balance having these incredibly beautiful conversations with these high energy beings, and then bring that down and come back home and care for a family and have relationships and make friends, and again, we still live in a world where you have to make money to exist, to subside yourself. So how do you find the balance between those two?
Well, I consider myself very lucky to have a family, to have kids that automatically bring me back home, and that brings me back into this reality. And the thing about kids that are born of this age is that they're so much more connected than we were when we grew up. So that's then the beauty, to see how are they naturally open? How can I support them in that journey? How can I be a parent for the next generation that maybe they don't have to forget as deeply as we needed to? Maybe they can just have some of the things that roll over. At least the conversation is open. And then I was, in a connection, I was actually given earth codes. So that's why I call what I do earth codes for starseeds, because these codes are actually so grounding. So I get light language to ground. So that is helpful, and it helps me to go for a walk and speak light language at the trees. I mean,
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, I think it's going to be very important as people again realizing that this next generation is a lot more tuned in, a lot more tapped into um, where humanity is going, the direction that humanity is going, and they're making decisions based off of that. And you know, we can, from my perspective, you know, the people that have been waking up over the last 2 decades, 3 decades, you know, they went through these kind of darker experiences, these traumatic experiences, because they designed it that way, because they wanted to get the full effect. Okay, let's look at what is really happening on this planet before we start making changes, right? Like, let's really see the darkness on this planet so that we can understand, okay, how do we get past this very dark situation? Because I think it seems like there was a group of beings that came in that had a very kind of cushy, you know, they grew up with affluence, and they were making a little bit of change in the world, but then they kind of got blocked by this comfortability. They were too comfortable with the world and how it was existing, and then they kind of, you know, they didn't follow that spiritual pathway. They got entangled in maybe a little bit more of the materialistic aspect of the 3D reality. Again, this is just kind of my perspective that I've seen over the last, you know, couple of probably like 30 some years, that some people, they innately have this spiritual ability, and then they kind of lose track and go into that, just kind of get stuck in the comfortableness of what has been created on the planet. So if we're going to bring everybody with us on this shift, you had to kind of experience a little bit of that lower level of the world, you know, the kind of darkness that exists on the planet, so you could get a perspective and then be able to make the change from that perspective, from a maybe a little bit more of a balanced perspective, instead of just always believing that everyone is good and has enough and is abundant. You know, you had to experience that lack of abundance before you could really come in and start, you know, making changes.
I also think, like, I just have so much admiration and love for the people that came before us, because they got us to this point. They got us to this critical mass point where we then all chose to wake up, and where the frequencies are just so different. And so when I think back to some of that and some of the people that I have known, I completely understand. I sometimes find it hard now, and in this journey I've not always thought, yes, I will go out, I will share my codes with the world. I've found it hard as well. So I can completely see, in if you in this open day and age feel like maybe I should hide, I completely understand why you chose in the 80s and 90s to go, I shall hide for a little bit. I
Right.
might just take a back seat over here. And we have the internet, like you and I are connecting opposite sides of the world, and connecting. My network is also all over the world. And so if you're sitting and you're feeling all alone in a small village somewhere and no one else is seeing the world as you're seeing it, oh my God. I just love those people so much. I mean, to think that they did the work anyway, maybe they did it more privately, maybe they did it, but they did it. And here we are. So,
Right. Yeah. They formed, you know, smaller schools and smaller groups and smaller communions, and again, the power of drawing in these people to you, as you
and
become.
maybe they just did it at home. Maybe they were just a shining light, and maybe that's what their village needed, is that someone was just sitting in meditation every night, doing the work without spreading it, but actually planting a seed of light in just that location.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever they were doing, the sacrifices that they were made, yeah, like you said, you know, you have to be very grateful for those, because again, you and I are sitting here having an awakening 2 3 years ago, and we're able to just openly discuss it and put it out into the world. And you know, I don't even think maybe 5 or 6 years ago we could have been having this conversation and felt
No,
as comfortable about putting it out as we do right now. So it
no,
is,
that's it.
yeah, it's a testament to those people, and even those people. You know, you think back into like the 1920s and 30s when we're at just getting over World War I and about to go into World War II, and we're in this Great Depression, and there's people that were waking up and having these experiences that were these channels that were putting out this information. And I don't know, it's hard for me to understand. You know, I think that information is now a little bit more available to us. The Esther Hicks, Esther Hicks, like these people that were channeling, they probably weren't putting it out as much as it looks like from this perspective. They were probably in a very close knit group of people who were very handpicked, and they were channeling this information for that very small group of people. And then 50, 60 years later, and then these videos and these recordings of them start coming out, and we start to really understand what the intelligence that was going on back then, what that meant for humanity today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also whenever you hear a story about someone starting to channel, it can also like I said, it can seem so quick. Like it because always when you look back you're like, "Oh, but now this person is channeling and it's beautiful and it's flowing." Like I now do gigantic paintings and like very intricate drawings, and so much light language is coming through my hands in drawings as well. But that's not where it began. Like it began with little childish gibberish where you were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is crazy." But it's then sitting with that where your human mind goes, "This is crazy," and you keep sitting with it and you keep working it. And now here we are 3 years later, and I'm like, okay, so this is something I can actually be proud of. But it took me 3 years. So, and I think that's what we forget sometimes when we hear of these big channelers, that they've been doing it for 40 years. But I heard someone the other day, they were like, yeah, they got that first channel and then they shut it down for 10 years because it was too much. So then they only did like a little journaling for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But in this, like now, internet, everything and content, and it's quick, you can forget that no, this is a craft like anything else, and you have to do the work. It's a practice. You sit with it. It happens to you. Like you can connect in, and everyone now on the planet is able to connect in. Because the frequencies are here. We're totally capable. But it is a practice.
Right. And you have to have that belief too. You have to have the belief that you're able to do that. And that's where the internet, I think, is speeding things up, is because, if you're in a small town and there is no frame of reference for what you're experiencing, there's no frame of reference for, you're a channel and you're channeling this information. It's that there is, to find that belief, to find that, belief in yourself that you're able to do this and that this is a normal thing and that this is something that is good for you, especially if maybe you have a little bit more of a religious upbringing, because a lot of religions shut this down. They did not want channeling. They did not want new information, whether they were doing it because they didn't think people could handle it and they wanted to make sure that the information was as pure as possible, or they were doing it to maintain their power.
Probably.
Either one, it doesn't really matter which one it is. But they were definitely shutting this down, and that's where you have these generational traumas of people being burned at the stake for their sixth sense abilities, their channeling, their psychic abilities, and all that. And you have that generational trauma in your lineage, and that's again healing that generational trauma so that you can live your highest timeline, to live your best life, to allow the light to emanate through you. It's powerful, and it's crazy to believe that we're in this time where there's a possibility that 20, 30, 40% of people will be tuned in, tapped in, and will be changing the physical reality in such a drastic way that it just gives me so much hope that In a world that is full of a lack of hope, there is a lot of hope, and this I hope is bringing some more hope to other people, to people who are experiencing these things and they're like, I have no idea what is going on here. So I think these conversations are beautiful, and it's a part of this evolution that we have going on.
It's amazing.
Well, this has been wonderful. I really enjoyed the topics that we got into. I would love to have you back on maybe in a couple of months, and we can touch base again about, what's coming through, because like you said, the difference between the channel information that's coming in today versus even like 2 or 3 months ago is completely different, and it's shifting and changing. And I know I didn't experience that 2 or 3 years ago. I had a very similar message for 8 or 10 or 12 months, and then it kind of shifted and changed a little bit, but it wasn't like a big change. And now it feels like every 2 months, it's like completely different message, a completely different idea. What do we need to be working on? And it's fascinating to experience.
Completely agree. Would you maybe want to close us off with a card? I have some light language cards, and I can draw a card on the energies for...
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. So we'll just tune in. So everyone listening to this podcast, just tune in, and we will include you in the energy, what we're going for in the months to come.
If you're driving, please keep your eyes open.
For sure. I will just, for the video, show this card. This is the card Unlearn. So an invitation for everyone to look into what is programming from the old world, what you need to unlearn, and how you can listen into yourself more.
Beautiful. I really appreciate that, Melanie. That was wonderful. And yeah, for those of you who just experienced your first light language, tap in, tune in, see what it felt like. If it was like, that is a no for me, then light language is not your thing. But if you...
Well, my version of light language is not for you, but there might be others out there. But yeah, no, it's definitely a thing that you need to feel. And you need to feel from the channel that does the light language and feel like you're connected. But definitely, if you feel there's something there for you, then explore it.
Beautiful. And if people are looking to connect with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
I am Earth Codes for Starseeds everywhere. So find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put those in the show notes. And Melanie, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Joe.
I will be talking to you in a few short months.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.